Hello, welcome to the Healing Lab. Today I'm excited. We have Jacqueline Peddleton. She is a health and fitness coach with over 38 years experience, specializing in helping women in their 40s, 50s, and beyond to rebuild their bodies from the inside out. Her work focuses on critical but often overlooked area, the inner core. Her full body renovation method she teaches includes to reconnect their inner core through breathing and movement, improve posture and reduce pain, restore strength, stability, and mobility, move from a stressed holding pattern to a body that works efficiently again. Her approach combines science, real-life experience, and practical strategies, helping women understand their bodies rather than fight against them. Jacqueline, thanks so much for joining the Healing Lab.
Thank you, and it's great to be here today.
Amazing. So tell us, how did you get into the coaching business and working specifically with women to help them identify and improve their physical, mental well-being?
Right, so I used to be a professional jazz dancer actually, and so when I retired from show business, I didn't want to do like a desk job, so I ended up going into sports coaching. So this is about 38 years ago now. And then I became a personal trainer 18 years ago. So I actually position myself as a midlife movement coach. Okay, so I don't have a military approach. I just work with women 40, 50 and beyond, and it's really based on my own story. So with the inner core work, it's also based on my own story, having 4 children, a fractured tailbone, and 3 C-sections. So this is why I specialize in that inner core work. Um, and then also I've burnt out, people that have suffered from stress, burnt out and gained 15 kilos and a racing heart rate from stress, leaving a toxic relationship about 5 years ago. But I started to burn out about 2014 when I started to go through perimenopause, menopause. And so, yeah, that's why I actually specialize in that area. But I've always been a coach, not a trainer.
Ah, gotcha. So is there a certain age that you really find that is like critical or a turning point with the people that you work with, that it's just common to where like things fall apart, or there's just issues physically, or just is that like a common thread that you run across, or is it just kind of based on the individual?
But my activities that I do, and I've had to work quite hard on it, is I actually do front flips and backdrops on trampolines. And most of the people down at the gymnastics gym are in their 20s and 30s, okay? So it's quite unusual, my age at 63, to be able to do those things. But generally, I think what happens, and I've been thinking about this a lot because I work with clients right into their 80s, and they lose mobility and they start to use age as an excuse, like, oh, I'm having problems because I'm getting older. But you can see people who are 100, who are 100 years of age and still are quite mobile. And so it's not an age thing, it's a conditioning thing. So I think that, we stop to play on playgrounds and then we get sedentary. We might play sport, but we don't get fit for our sport. We just basically go and play a sport, then we get an injury and then we give up. So I think it's just those things. And then perimenopause, menopause comes along. They might have actually developed an autoimmune disease like fibromyalgia or polymyalgia, lupus, Hashimoto's, some of those ones, which has then affected the structure. So I always liken the full body renovation method to a car. So the inner core is like the chassis of the car, and the outer body muscles, big core muscles, are the body of the car. So most people train the body of the car doing sit-ups and loads and loads of crunches, etc., but they don't work on the inner core, which is like the chassis of the car, or like a non-surgical corset, right? So I think that they start to say, mainly once women have had children, secondary to childbirth or pain, those core muscles would have switched off, and then so they start to have issues with incontinence. Then they have a problem with their hip, or they have a foot with their foot ankle, their shoulder, and they start to try and fix the external rather than fixing the internal problem, right?
So tell us more about your approach. Do you have like a physical kind of exercises that you recommend, or yoga or meditation, or just lifestyle changes, diet? Like how do you approach working
I
with your
think the thing,
clients?
I think the thing, first of all, they need to understand because so I am certified with epigenetics as well, and I do blood chemistry analysis as part of my program, my full body renovation method. And it's a bit like, you rock up to the garage and you say, okay, what's wrong with it? They wave the diagnostics over it and they say, this is not working, that is not working. And that's what I do. I use the diagnostics based on pre-screen blood chemistry, looking at their DNA and what might be going on with them historically. Have they had issues in their childhood? Have they had stress issues? Other things going on. And then with the blood chemistry, looking at those different factors that are going on, because it's not necessarily just menopause, because your body really doesn't have a sense of humor. It just adapts accordingly because we're Homo sapiens, right? So that's my approach, is doing a pre-screen, and I do quite a bit of pre-screening. And then it's pretty much about putting together a program, but them also learning through education about being able to having to take responsibility for themselves and what's gone on with them. And and so really buying into that and understanding them as a person and an individual, because what will work for one person won't work for them because they're not them. So that's what I do through education. And that way they're more likely to stick with it because I have to take responsibility rather than people might say, right, I'm going to do something about it, and a hiss and a roar. And then motivation can only go so far. So with that pre-screen, it's really understanding what is actually going on with them. And so that's how I then look at structural reports. I work with chiropractors, osteopaths, physiotherapists, even podiatrists, and look at what's going on there and what they've been told. And then I use the program design around that. So it's not just about sending them to yoga. It's about conditioning the inner core first with a strategic exercise program, and then maybe just starting doing something like walking until they get that really strong frame or structure. Then you can load on the strong structure, because if you built a house and you didn't have a strong frame and you started putting all of the stuff on top of it, it would just fall down like a pack of cards. And so your body's the same. You can't load on a weak structure. You can't go to the gym and lift 20 kilos worth of weight and it's weak. All you're going to end up is just wearing yourself out, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm curious. So do you think like regulating hormones is one of the biggest factors for women going through menopause? And how do you approach hormones in that respect?
When I look at blood chemistry, I can actually see what, obviously, in asking questions, first of all, and there's certain symptoms of it. And I do other pre-screens where have they got issues with stress, which then affects the hormones. So, if you look the normal body, if it's a bit like, if you're injured your foot, you start to feel it in your knee, then you start to feel it in your hip, then you start to feel it in your shoulder. So it's the same as your body. If something happens with the hormones, when it comes to perimenopause, menopause, if somebody's had a lot of stress or other things going on, your body's just waiting. It's just been adapting the whole time. So that's what you've got to really look at, the hormones. It's just, you've got to look at a whole unit. And that's why I look at it from the brain down, through the whole thing. That's why it's called a full body renovation, like taking your car in and getting a complete overhaul on it. That's what I do. But they're actually learning at the same time what will work for them as a person, and stop watching the internet and some celebrity or whatever with the latest
So yeah, so
fad,
you take
because yeah.
you, you take a holistic approach, very comprehensive
Holistic.
approach to really.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So let's talk about sleep. How do you discuss like the importance of like sleep and posture? So, I invented the Da Vinci orthopedic pillow, and this pillow
Right.
saved me from spine surgery, disc replacement surgery, because it's the only pillow in the world that free floats and decompresses the cervical spine because it transfers the tension from the neck to the upper chest and the head. And it allows the disc to rehydrate, inflammation to go down, and the disc and the spine to naturally heal, which it did for me and so many other people. And then we discovered in our trials for the neck pain trials, that it stops snoring because it lifts you up, it lifts your chest up, and it tilts your
Yeah.
head back. So it opens up
Elevates it.
the airways 100%.
Anyways.
So, yeah. So the, you know, I think if you're getting like, lack of oxygen in when you're sleeping, or if you're having bad posture, that can have, serious knock-on effects. And, you spend 8 hours a day usually on, sleeping. So how do you approach sleep with your clients?
Start with the blood chemistry analysis. Obviously, I can see if they've got an autoimmune response. It's really about reducing that stress. But in regards to posture, and I do a postural assessment actually that I give for people to do a postural and a core assessment. But pretty much like you say, most people have got like the forward head posture as they age, they start to get forward head posture, and that will be dependent on whether they've got sway posture, whether the pelvis is tilted backwards or forwards, lots of different variables, and that will be structural. So, and obviously, I have worked a lot with people, and that's one of the things I do look at sleep in my program, because your body adapts at rest, not when you're doing more. Right. So I think it's really just understanding that. But posturally, you're right. If they're not getting a good night's sleep, and look, if somebody has got sleep apnea or they've got serious issues, I would refer them to a sleep specialist because, some people can stop breathing. But I do think that, it's about having a comfy bed, having the proper pillow, making sure that you don't have your phone on, all of those different things to allow your body to recover and to get a really good night's sleep. Because if you're not sleeping, your body's not going to adapt, is it? So I think that's really, really important. Yeah. So with the inner core, because when you start to strengthen the inner core, what happens is, and I use diaphragmatic breathing. So I started to create it as a pump. So diaphragm, pelvic floor, TVA, and back muscles, like the non-surgical corset. So when you start to breathe through your diaphragm, it opens the chest up and pushes the neck back. So when they start to do that as part of the exercise, and I get them to do that on all fours, like on a 4-point stance, right up to standing. Okay, so isolating it and then putting it into movement. So with that, that really helps it. And so when you were saying about the pillow, it is really having the right environment. Because you can do all of these things. You can have the right nutrition, you can have the right exercise, you can have all of those things. But your body needs the opportunity to be able to adapt and take the brakes off so that then you get the result that you want. Okay, so I think what you've developed is fantastic because it's really about having a great night's sleep. And like you say, people have, especially if they're already forward. So in combination with that, that's what I work on. But at the end of the day, they do need to have a comfy bed. They need to have the right pillows. They need to have the right environment to be able to get a good night's sleep.
Yeah, and be in the right, yeah, posture to kind of, as you age, that you're, kind of keeping your posture the way it should be and not letting it, kind of decline and create arches, which is kind of common, obviously, when you age. Um, do you find that a lot of your clients have or deal with acid reflux?
So, whether the things with the stress, symptoms of stress are aching joints, fatigue, bloating, weight gain or weight loss, and reflux is one of the signs of, and brain fog, which are quite often put down to menopause. Right? And I mean, look, men suffer from this as well, because men can have an extended stomach and end up with what's called visceratosis. So the viscera is extended. And so they can then have issues because the diaphragm is in the wrong position, especially if they're quite tall. And so therefore it's about getting that inner core working so that then the viscera starts to tighten and then supports the organs and then they start to stand up straight. So therefore things like acid reflux, I would say not to take acid blockers. I mean, obviously I'm not a doctor, but because sometimes if somebody takes acid blockers, quite often your body will go, oh, that's okay. I don't need to do anything now. It just adapts accordingly. So whatever you do to your body is pretty much going to, it's an action creates a reaction, right? That's what's going to
Hmm.
happen.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. There's not that many, or there's one acid reflux pillow on the market, but it has just really bad reviews on Amazon. And then in order to like alleviate acid reflux without going like changing diet and medication, one option to try, obviously talk to your doctor if you have it as a serious, very serious
Yeah,
issue, but it's to lay on your left side, sleep on your left side at an inclined position. And that can help a lot of people. It doesn't help everyone, of course, but um, yeah, so it's yeah, it's like very widespread, and it's just kind of epidemic that's getting worse. And the just so happens, that's one of the other main kind of verticals that the Da Vinci pillow helps out, because it's basically the
yeah,
most comfortable pillow and adjustable pillow in the world for acid reflux, for laying on your left side. And yeah, just adding in all these different components of, diet, physical health, exercise, you know, rebalancing, hormones, sleep, posture, all those little things add up, and it can make a, profound impact if they're all done. So, um, now, do you, um, do you work a lot, or do you mainly work more on like the physical side of things, or you also kind of coach women um more with like just like life situations, kind of mental health, kind of working with them to like figure out their goals and kind of restructure their life? Or is it more of a, they would come to you more like for a physical type of transformation?
so my program, because I work a lot with women who have got stress, but they think it's menopause. Okay, so and obviously that internal, like you were saying about the reflux, is going to affect the external because they might sit differently. Like you were saying about you having it on an incline, right? So they're going to sit differently, or they're going to do different things. So no, I don't, because you can't really do the physical if you don't actually get all of the other stuff going properly. Okay. So when somebody's quite
Mm-hmm.
stressed, and I said, I mean, this is pretty much built from my own issues. I mean, I could hardly get out of bed. I was exhausted all of the time. And at the time, I was doing personal training, right? And so I was training up to 10 people a day. Doesn't seem very many, but you've got to be on your A game. And I'd have to come out and go, so how are you today? And then I'd go back in because I was on the property. I had a studio on the property when I was living for children, and I'd go back in and be like that, and I'd be like, "You're so miserable all the time," and it's because I was exhausted. So I think the thing is that's really through that education. Obviously, if somebody's got issues, because I've come across a lot here where maybe their son or their daughter has hung themselves, or they've committed suicide, something like that, or some very traumatic thing, then I do suggest them go and work with a counsellor. Okay, but it's really just about having that holding, and then understanding you as a person and changing your mindset. But the thing is, you've got to do something about it. It's like you were saying about the pillow. They've got and nutrition and exercise. Everyone's got to have everything in place. A bit like going back to the car. if you're putting water in your petrol tank, it's probably not going to get far. So you're therefore going to put petrol in. You're going to put additives in to make it perform better, depending on what model it is. So why wouldn't you do the same to your body? Because we spend thousands of dollars on our car, but we don't seem to spend thousands of dollars on ourselves. On ourselves, you only get one body, you only get one life. So with the physical, if somebody's got stress issues and they've got aching joints, I do it quite slowly. So this is where I start with the diaphragmatic breathing and the inner core work, because the gut and the core are on the same neurological loop or switchboard. So when you start to strengthen the inner core, the gut starts to work better, the hormones, are all active hormones are produced in the gut, and the liver starts to filter better. Everything starts to work. So it's pretty much taking it from a mini to a high performance sports car, and then maintaining it going forward so that then you live longer, and then it will change potentially the epigenetics, because your epigenetics can be changed, your DNA, based on what's happening with your life. So it's really just about doing that, but just taking the first step. So it's not necessarily physical, because if the physical side of it will only work if the rest of it is working. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah, it's yeah, very, very interesting. So for um, most of your clients, where do you see them kind of, coming to you with like the most common problems that they're trying to overcome? Like what's the most common thing that you're seeing these days?
As I said, unless somebody's got an autoimmune disease already, okay, so that's what I will see in the pre-screen. But generally, it's because they've gained weight. Usually, if people have gained weight when they've gone through perimenopause, menopause, they'll do something about it. Although I've worked with people who can't gain weight, it's the other way around. But actually, it's a lot harder if somebody can't gain weight. People think, oh, that's great if I didn't gain weight. But no, it actually is worse if it's that way. But, usually they've gained weight, or they've ended up with an injury, or they're finding it hard to get their shopping out of their car, they're finding it hard to get round the supermarket. But generally, most people, it's usually because they've started to gain weight and they're looking for solutions, or they're looking for the next magic potion, I suppose.
Those clients that you're seeing, so you basically tell us like how more about how you approach that like, so we know that you have kind of a comprehensive framework to evaluate the different aspects. So how does that look like? So if somebody was a new client to you, walk us through the steps of kind of how you would approach that and what the expectation would be.
Now, based on what their goals are, so when I do the pre-screen, they would fill in their goals, and it might be to lose weight, to get fitter, da da da. And so, therefore, to start with, and I mean, I do have a nutritionist that I work with as part of my program, but I am qualified with nutrition. And so, what I'll do first of all is get them to start looking at what they're eating. So, after the pre-screen, start to look at what they're eating, and you'd be amazed that most people who have gained weight are actually not eating enough. You see somebody quite big and you think, oh, they must eat loads, but actually it's the opposite. They're usually starving themselves. So you've got to sort of eat to be able to lose weight. So initially it would be to just start to get them to look at what they're eating, and then start to make sure that they're having enough protein. And then we sort of work on one bit or another. And then they start to go through the program in that way. And then we look at where their stresses are, what's going on with their stress based on their goals. So this is very much hand holding, but it's about doing one or two things and then cementing those things. Okay, so if they fall off the horse, I just say get back on. Okay, because it's a bit like that, and then like that, and then it's a bit like that, and then like that. Because you don't wake up one morning and go, oh, I can't believe like I didn't gain 15 kilos overnight. I didn't go to bed and go, wow, I gained 15 kilos. When I woke up the next day, I was 15 kilos heavier. It was over time. So it's going to take time. It's a journey. So it's really about empowering them to understand it is a journey, and some weeks are going to be good and some weeks are going to be bad. And so that's how I actually attack that. It's really doing the pre-screen first of all, and then start to develop habits and start to stack those habits, but just doing one or two things. And so I'll have a call with them after a week, but I'll be checking in with them all the time. So this is quite comprehensive. Have you done that? Have you done that? And quite often they'll say, oh, well, I didn't do that. And so, well, don't worry about it. Just keep moving forward. So long as you're moving towards your goal, that's the most important thing. And that's what I found. And I mean, I've had a lot of success with people where they felt like they had more energy, they started to drop weight. But you've got to give your body the opportunity to take the brakes off so that it can say, I can come out, I'm fine now, I can come out now. But you've got to give it the opportunity to adapt. It's same as going back to you saying about the pillow. You've got to give your body the opportunity to be able to adapt to that and get a good night's sleep. You've got to put it in an environment to be able to do that for it to actually adapt. Otherwise, it's just going to do the same thing and just keep doing what it's always done, right?
Hmm. So I heard weightlifting can be good for osteoporosis and women that are, past 40 to, don't discount like lifting weights. Do you recommend, like kind of building up muscle and and lifting weights or more in like cardio, or what are your thoughts on that?
The thing is, you have to do you have to do lots of different things. Okay, and quite often as women, and I'm not like leaving the men out, but as women, we tend to sort of be running back and forth almost like the circus trainer, with the spinning the plates, like the act they used to have, and putting yourself last and feeling consistently guilty. But when it comes to strength training, obviously with men, testosterone drops, men need to do weight training as they age. And I see a lot with older women that they do walking, but they might actually go to the gym and then start lifting really heavy weights, which is all well and good, but then you need to get that strong structure first. Then we start to load on the strong structure because the core controls the extremities. So strength training, absolutely. And I think a lot of women think, oh, I'm going to turn into Arnold Schwarzenegger. Well, you'd have to be lifting a pretty heavy weight to be able to do that. And that will be go back again to your DNA, whether you've done what sort of sports you've done. Because when somebody comes and sees me, I can look at their arms and I can tell based on their activity that they've done in the past, whether they've done a lot of sprinting or whether they've done ball sports, racket sports, based on what their muscle type will be like and how it will adapt accordingly. Okay. So then it's actually about tailoring the exercise program to that. It's not just about lifting a whole load of weights. It's about looking at them as an individual. But it's doing things also that they enjoy. But doing weight training, doing cardiovascular training, doing fast foot work. So my older clients, I do a lot of fast foot work with them. And this is like throwing the ball to each other. And they're in their 80s, right? Bouncing on a mini tramp. Okay, having that spatial awareness, because what happens is with the inner ear and the balance, we start to lose that because being healthy and fit is a means to an end. So you can pick up your luggage and put it on the scales to check in at the airport. You can put your luggage in the overhead locker on the train or on the plane. You can pick up your groceries. You can play with your grandkids or your kids. That's why you become stronger, so that then you're more able to be independent. It really all comes back to being independent. Being healthy and fit is so that then you stay independent and you have a long, fulfilling life so you can enjoy yourself. It's just a means to an end. That's all it is. And that's how I educate people. And then with that, because they see it as an independence and a means to an end, they buy more into it. They take it more seriously rather than seeing it as a chore. I know that seems a bit of a
Hmm.
roundabout question, but I'm quite passionate about this
Yeah,
story. I
yeah.
really am. I'm on a mission.
Yeah, no, I can see. So with your clients, do you do they have typically you said that sometimes they're dealing with pain. Does it show up more commonly in like lower back pain or neck pain, shoulder pain, or hips or knees, or what? Is it just all across the board, or is there like a common,
I
area
mean,
that
obviously,
is,
if yeah, I mean, if somebody's got forward head posture, they could end up with trigger points in their neck. But generally, it's usually hip pain sciatica. So where they've got a tight piriformis, the muscle that runs along the sciatic nerve. When I do a postural assessment, I can see whether they've got a hip height. So one's tight, so they've got quite weak hips, one side is weaker than the other. And that will be, there's so many different variables because then that will come back to what they've done historically. So that's when I ask questions. Have they done racket sports? Have they played golf? Have they skied? What have they done when they were younger? Have they done gymnastics? If they've done gymnastics, quite often they'll have back pain because of the fact that they've got quite a lot of flexibility in those muscles, from doing bridges and things like that. And so you need to strengthen
Mhm.
around the area a lot more than somebody who's normal. So it really depends on the individual. And sometimes it might be, but generally the neck pain, but generally lower back pain, hip pain, which then turns into maybe knee pain, or having a problem with foot ankle. So it could be anywhere, but generally the most common one is usually the back pain. They end up with back pain, and then they do the same thing that most people do, and they say, "Oh well, it's just one of those things. I'm getting older." And I said with my own clients, I go, "Sorry, nah, not listening to that one. I don't care whether you are 84."
That, that is so true. And I personally experienced that recently. And yeah, it's just like, I guess I'm like, I was kind of developing this. It was from an injury, but a lower back pain. And I was just
Right.
like, is this what happens when you get older? Like, it's just is like, and
No.
what ended up happening was I, dealt with this for years. I was just dealing with the pain for years, and then went to the orthopedic doctor. They did PRP, didn't work. They didn't really give me a good analysis. And then I was like, well, let me just try chiropractor. The chiropractors never helped me with my neck, so I was kind of like not so sure if that was going to work. But I was like, well, I think my back needs to be adjusted, like my lower back. And sure enough, what happened was I had an injury, and I like my hip basically got dislodged, or my femur bone got like just like pushed up
Wow.
on on my right leg to my hip, and just completely knocked it out of place. And so I've been, my hips were just not aligned properly, and one was higher than the other, and then that caused my spine to curve sideways, and my discs were all out of line, and my nerves were just getting pinched. Like, typically in the mornings it was horrible, and then it kind of went away. But it was bad. Like, it took me a long time to get out of bed. Like, anytime I moved, I would be in excruciating pain. It was horrible. And now I've kind of, figured it out. Plus I'm doing stretches. Plus I do yoga. I do a bunch I run now, and I feel great. But it is all in that mindset. Like, you're right. It's just like, just because you're, 40 years old or 50 or 60 or 70, it doesn't really matter. It's how you take care of your body, and trying to figure out what is the underlying cause, and fixing the root cause, which is one of the
Yeah.
biggest problems in, at least in the United States and most Western societies, for the kind of whole medical apparatus around, you know, diagnosing diagnosing and treating different things. It rarely falls to the underlying problem. Very, very, very rarely. And like, that's another mission that, I have with my pillow, is because it's non-invasive. It's not going to hurt you. It's a comfortable pillow. And
Yeah.
it may not work for like everyone 100% of the time, like there's, it may not work for everybody, but it works for like 98% of the people that try it, and it's non-invasive. and, look at me. I mean, like I couldn't even look to the right. And I had semi paralysis. My whole right arm was numb. My face was numb. My upper body here, chest and back, it was bad. Like I couldn't even get out of bed sometimes. I had spasms all the time. So I was dealing with like a serious issue, which that's why I was like, okay, I'm going to have to get disc replacement surgery. And like literally right before, I came up with a kind of a support structure design that basically just took the tension away and unpinched my nerves immediately. And I noticed it immediately. I'm like, wow, this is like, because I bought every pillow on Amazon you could buy, and nothing, worked for me. Unfortunately, no, I saw 6 doctors. I mean, both in Texas and Florida, so I mean, it was just going down a rabbit hole, But then one day I was just like, I kind of fumbled upon this kind of designs like the support, and it worked. And then I just kind of developed it out, and then I got a full recovery, and I was 85% better in like 3.5 weeks. Massive improvement, changed my life. And then I give it to other people and helped other people that have had pain for 10 years, chronic pain. And we had one surgeon here in Austin that limped for 2 years, and he got just within like less than a month, he was able to like play golf and ride his bike, and his limp went away because his back was, that was we have 2 products. That was the lower back decompression pillow that I invented. And then the one that's on the market is not for the lower back. We do have one coming out for the official lower back one in a few months, but the one that's on the market now is just for neck pain, just so everyone's clear. It also is the only pillow in the world that stops snoring, and the most comfortable pillow for acid reflux. So I think it would have a lot of application for, anyone that's just trying to optimize their sleep, optimize their posture, or if they're dealing with any type of tension in their, neck or shoulders. It can be, life changing. But again, it's the non-invasive approach to find like the root cause. And it sounds like that's exactly what you do, and that's exactly how you help your clients. And I think that's the best, solution, at least for the first, to like the first option is to, okay, let's try to do this naturally, non-invasively, find the root cause, and then work your way up, not the other way around,
Yeah. And I mean, this is the thing. And I mean, not like you were saying, you went to lots of doctors. And to be honest with you, pain like back pain and things like that. And I mean, I do, when people get older, they do develop things like osteoporosis, and which is an autoimmune disease as well. But, and it can mainly, generally, back pain can really wear you down. But with you, obviously, it was adapting until eventually it started to really, really affect you. And it's hard because you obviously were trying to look for solutions and you found one that worked for you, but it can really wear you down. Back pain is probably the most common one. And I mean, most people, especially if they're quite a strong person, try and ignore it. Like, oh, it's going to go away, or, they try and heat it or ice it or whatever. And it is quite hard. So I'm really glad that you found a solution and you're empowering other people because, that's what they need. But it is really about looking at what's going on in regards to a root cause rather than the symptoms of it, But no, I think it's fantastic what you're doing. But yeah, that's what I do. It's really about understanding them and why has it come from. So it was yours. So did you have an injury then? Were you playing like a sport or what were you doing?
Yeah, both both the injuries were from wakeboarding. I was doing flips.
Wakeboarding, right.
Yeah, very dangerous. And I snapped my neck 2 times, and
Crikey. As you
basically
do.
like uh, I was, yeah. So I mean, I was learning like a certain I can do what's called a tantrum, which is like a backflip. But I was learning a back roll, which is a different type of a invert flip around the boat.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the
yeah.
velocity that you have
And
the
then you've got to
philosophy
really
is
be
like when you
careful
get,
with your neck. You've got to be quite careful with your neck because you're not doing a flip,
well,
you're doing a
yeah, I
roll.
mean,
Yeah,
basically, like the velocity was like hitting the water at 100 miles an hour, and like my head
right,
goes this way, my body goes that way, and
right,
actually, one of the times I got it knocked me like unconscious, and
really.
I was like, what the hell happened? But that, yeah, that's what happened, and it was just it just progressively got worse.
Yeah,
The more that I tried to heal it, the worse it got. The more the doc, like, unfortunately, it just, the chiropractic adjustments and any of the physical therapy just didn't get, help me. But I remember the first time, well, maybe not the first time, but maybe the third or fourth doctor. So I saw some chiropractors at first, and then I went to the urgent care when I had a spasm, and they just give me pain medications, which actually didn't even work because it was a pinched nerve and it was so painful. But you know, it's just crazy how, I don't know, closed-minded a lot of these people are. I mean, even with the, I was telling this story today because I was meeting with some physical therapists and some doctors, and like, there was this one doctor locally that I called because I was dealing with like a lower back issue, and I was like, I just need an adjustment because I got an X-ray and I think I need an adjustment. Like, that's what I think I need. And sure enough, I did need that. But I was just like, hey, I need this adjustment. He's like, oh, I do a holistic approach. And I was like, oh, okay, you're holistic. That sounds interesting. I wasn't calling to talk about my pillow at all, but I was like, oh, you have holistic, okay? Like, maybe you'd be interested in my pillow. So and the admin person, front desk lady, like set up a phone call with the doctor, and I was like, yeah, hey, I got this. I got this, lower back pain going on. I was just trying to get an adjustment. He's like, oh, I have a holistic approach. I was like, that's great. Like, I have this pillow. I invented it, saved me from spine surgery, and it's helped hundreds of people with the same thing. And I was like, can I drop one off for you? He's like, I don't recommend pillows. And I was like, well, no, this thing saved me from spine surgery. It puts you in a perfect posture. It free flows your cervical spine. It transfers the tension and weight from the neck to the head and upper back, which no other pillow does. And it works. And he's like, I don't recommend pillows. I don't think that, it doesn't matter to me. Like, how you sleep or whatever. Like, I have my own thing. And I'm like, okay, look, I was like, I'll give you a pillow. I'll drop it off. I'm like, I live 5 minutes away. I'll drop you off a free pillow and you can try it yourself and give it to your patients who have dealing neck pain. And I guarantee you it's going to work. No, no, no. I don't, I don't work with that, like, pillows or anything. So these are the things that, like, you run across because, or even
yeah,
like the
no, it's
dentist,
hard.
the dentist, right? They do mouth guards for snoring,
Mm,
and they know about some of these guys know about my pillow, but they're never going to say, hey, you don't really need a $3,000 uncomfortable, painful mouth guard. You may be able to actually just lay on a pillow and not use your CPAP machine or stop snoring. Obviously talk to your doctor. I mean, sleep apnea is a serious thing, but it can help posturally if you are in the right posture to, breathe and not have to rely on the CPAP machine. If you can stay in the correct posture, it can solve that issue. If you can't stay in that correct posture, or if you have other issues or it's serious, obviously you still need it. But, it's just like, is a dentist going to recommend a pillow? No, unless it was their family member, but otherwise they're going to make the money because that's what they do. And so that's that's just time and time again. Like, that's why it's so hard to get a product like this out to the market. And now I'm looking at some major licensing deals with some like large publicly traded companies, global, like one of them Tempur-Pedic, another like large publicly traded company, and like getting it into the insurance market because the insurance companies would save tens of millions of dollars, but they're the ones that are going to promote it, not the dentist. Like, eventually they'll be like, okay, before you get a CPAP machine or a mouth guard, why don't you try this inexpensive orthopedic pillow that is proven clinically to work? And if it doesn't work, we'll get you the mouth guard. But first, try this. And then, like, we're talking right now with the VA even. And so that's the difficult part of it. Is it is what it is, but you kind of have to go to the people that actually could benefit, which are the insurance companies, not the doctors. You know, the doctors don't benefit by helping their patients get better real quick. You know, like they lose money, and the insurance companies, they're the
Exactly.
ones that make the savings for their shareholders and their employees. But again, if it was a dentist and it was their spouse or their family member or loved one or friend, what are they going to say? They're seriously going to say, "Hey, no, you need a mouth guard." I guarantee you they won't, because I know these people. They'll be like, "Hey, by the way, why don't you should try this pillow first before you do anything and see if it works." And it just may work, most likely it will. But they're not going to recommend a painful mouth guard to a family member if they can get away with a much lower cost, solution that's way more comfortable and has other benefits as well. So yeah, I mean, I think that's just a point for your clients too, or your future clients, is like, you have to always have your own opinion and create your own opinion and do your own research and get second opinions, and just don't take things for face value, whatever any doctor tells you, because a lot of times, it may just not be the right thing for you. It may be the right thing for somebody else, but maybe, it may not be the right thing for you. And I think that's where the value that you have with your clients is bringing that out and letting them see that, and then coming up with the solution that actually solves the issue, and, hopefully solves the issue as non-invasively as possible by making lifestyle changes, habit changes, and diet changes, changing like your sleep routine, your, everything, and that can make a, profound impact. And then it can have knock-on effects to help, your emotional state, your mental state, your physical state, and everything like that, right? So yeah, I think that's super critical. And then yeah, I mean, just the point of like denial, I think, like you're saying, a lot of people are in just straight up denial. And like, I think just facing that denial and saying, okay, look, like something is not right. Like this, this is, at some point it's going to be the pain of trying to take care of it is going to be less than the pain that you're dealing with. And people push it off. And I know I have. I mean, that was like, that happened to me. But it's like recognizing, okay, like I may be in denial. Like, let me really like dive into this and figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, go from there. So wonderful. So how can people find out about you, and tell us more about your program, and how you can help out?
Oh, I just wanted to add to that when you were saying about the people. So with the doctor, um,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, look, if you're having a heart attack, you can't take a multivitamin, right? I mean, we do need the medical field, but I think the thing is that sometimes if somebody's got like a doctor in front of it, like a doctorate, or the dentist, that what they say is just God's word, if you like, rather than, really understanding, okay, maybe there is something going on. And that's why I look at the reports. And I say, have you got any reports from the chiropractor? Have you got any reports from a dentist? Have you got any, right? Because I can see what's going on in regards to that, why they possibly have that, and then educate them. And then about them making the decision. But good on you that you've had that massive accident and then you've managed to solve it. But for me, I do have a link that they can go to. Generally, what I do is I just ask if people want to have a book a call with me. But what I do is I give a body chassis, postural and core assessment, just to sort of give them an assessment and see what it is that's going on. And I ask quite a few questions as well, and possibly as part of that, I might say, well, look, can you send me some reports, so I can have a look at them for you, and then basically send them in the right direction if I can't help them. So that's what I do. That's how they get a hold of me. And I mean, I can provide the link with you, but it's on Linktree, where they can just go in and they can find out more about me.
Great. Yeah, no, we'll keep that link will be in the description, and they can find you and reach out and get some more information on there. Well, thanks so much, Jacqueline. Is there anything else you'd like to close with?
No, there isn't really anything that I'd like to close with, other than I've really appreciated being on your show. I love your mission and what you're doing, and I'd love to do some stuff with you in the future. But I just feel that you're really empowering people to not just listen to the first person that they come across in the medical field, and that there is alternative solutions for them as an individual.
Yeah, I know. It's a crazy world out there. Huge epidemic going on with pain, like neck pain, lower back pain, sleep apnea, snoring. Like over 1 billion people are reported to have breathing issues in the world. Hundreds of millions of people have acid reflux. Hundreds of millions of people have pain, spine related neck pain or lower back pain. And yeah, funny enough, the Da Vinci pillow really helps out, with a lot of those issues non-invasively, in the comfort of your own home. So, yeah,
Yeah,
just trying
exactly.
to
That's
trying to get
great.
it out there, trying to help people, and help
Yeah.
so many people already. And yeah, it's and soon we'll be in New Zealand. We're still just we're in the United States, Canada, Mexico. We're moving to Europe here pretty soon, um, which is an easy jump, and then maybe a few other countries, and then um, I'm sure we'll have it on. Do you guys have Amazon there in New Zealand?
We do get Amazon, but it's basically shipped from Australia, and the shipping is not cheap. I've just recently been
Ah,
in the, been I've recently been in the UK, and it was great having shipping either within 1 hour or the same day. So you can actually shop on Amazon, but it generally comes from Australia, and so you have to spend a certain amount of money to get shipping. It's not like in the UK it was cheap as chips, whereas in New Zealand, because New Zealand's generally quite an expensive country, here. So because we've got a small population, right, no competition. So yeah, but so it can be relatively expensive, but people shop on Amazon all the time. They do shop online a lot here.
yeah, we have patents in Australia, and yeah, we'll be over there. So maybe, yeah, I wonder if they have, like, I guess they must have, it depends because like the product, because if you have a high volume product, they'll set up a warehouse like what we have, our fulfillment is with Amazon, and they'll just have all the,
Yeah,
product and at the certain fulfillment centers, all like they have the pillow like all over the US, and all these fulfillment centers, like many different locations all around. And I don't know, maybe they do that there, which could technically maybe lower the cost. But I understand, yeah, everything's probably expensive to ship over to New Zealand because it's so far away from everything, and
yeah.
um,
No, they do it
high
through
cost of
Australia.
living, I
So
bet.
I think they must have a warehouse in the biggest city, which is Auckland. But people do
Uh-huh.
shop on Amazon, but it's just it takes a week to get here, rather than in the UK and the US, you probably get it on the same day
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or within a
They'll be
couple of
there in two
hours. So it's
hours
just a little bit further. Well, it's actually 3.5
Uh,
hours flight from Australia to New Zealand. So it's not like just across the
that's
pond, it's
not
quite
that's
far.
not that bad.
It's not that
Is
bad.
the
No, three and a
flight
half hours.
is the is that to Perth or
No,
Sydney
no,
or
Perth's
where?
quite far away. To
Uh-huh.
Perth from Auckland, you're looking at 5 hours to Perth. But my
Okay, yeah,
son
you're on the
recently
other. Okay,
went,
I remember. Yeah.
yeah, my son recently went overseas and on holiday, and they flew from Wellington on Qantas, and I think it was about 3.5 hours. And I've flown to Brisbane before from Wellington, and it took about 3.5 hour flight. So yeah,
Huh.
that's quite far away. That's
Amazing.
Western Australia. That's quite far away. Closer to Asia,
So
though.
one last thing I'll leave you with. What is the most recommended place that people should come if they go to New Zealand? What would you recommend them see down there?
I suppose it depends on whether they like the Lord of the Rings. So I'm in Wellington, and they've got Weta Workshop here. And actually, Peter Jackson used to go to the same school that my kids went to. But it's like a film set. I think I would just start from the top of the North, basically from Auckland, and go all the way to the top of the North Island, and then come back to Auckland, and then go all the way down the bottom of the South Island. So the South Islands have got mountains and lakes and everything, and then up north it's geothermal. So you've got volcanoes, and you've got hot pools, and Rotorua. The place in Rotorua, you can basically dig down in the ground, and it's hot water. People cook their food like mori. They do a hangi. They bury the food a bit like in Hawaii. Where they bury the pig or whatever, the food, and so they cook underground. So yeah, there's lots of things, but it's quite adventurous here. You can pretty much kill yourself legally in this country because of the fact they do bungee jumping, they do every extreme sport you can think of is done in this country. So yeah, they're really, really quite adventurous. If you're an adventurous person, New Zealand's the place to be.
Wow. Awesome. Well, thanks, Jacqueline, so much. And yeah, I'd love to do this again. And we'll keep the link
Okay.
for you in the description for people to find you.
Okay then. All right. Bye.